Hello, everybody. Today I'm going to be talking about Azure AI Foundry. Azure AI Foundry is a platform made by Azure, and on that platform you can do a lot of different things with Gen AI. I will now show some of the basics of Azure AI Foundry, and in the end of this video, I will also show how to use some of the models that you can deploy on the Azure AI Foundry platform. So, how can you set up Azure AI Foundry? Well, first you need to create a resource. Azure AI Foundry is an AI resource. Just click create. You then need to select your subscription, your resource group, your name, your region, your first project name. So it's important to know that Azure AI Foundry puts development artifacts into projects such that different teams can work with different artifacts and can share different resources, but that different teams also have a split, say, a separation of concerns between the resources that they share. Next, I will just take, say, on the network can access the Azure Foundry. This is important for the using of API. Identity type will be system assigned. I will not do any extra encryption. I will not put any tags. This will be just a demo. Usually I found the resource that I will delete. And I will now set this resource to be created. So while the resource is being created, let's talk a little bit more what the Azure AI Foundry consists of. So Azure AI Foundry is built up on the previous Azure platforms, or it's a new approach to AI in Azure. It has the capability to deploy models, so it gives the user the capability to deploy models. Then it gives the user the capability to deploy guardrails on these models. It gives the user capability to check these models. It gives the user capability to set agents on these models, etc. So it gives the user capability to do a lot of with different models. Now, what kind of models does Azure AI Foundry offers? Well, there are OpenAI models that Azure AI Foundry provides. They are called Azure OpenAI models. And then there is a lot of models that Azure got from Hugging Face because it got into collaboration with Hugging Face. Also Grok models and also some other models which you will see very soon. So now we're going to go to the resource, which is our Azure AI Foundry resource, and I will now go to the Azure AI Foundry portal. So the starting place for all things Azure AI Foundry is this portal. Now you will see that in the beginning, the landing page is like this: that you see your first project, you see the API key, which you can use then to call the models. Then you can see below how to access these APIs from Azure AI Foundry for Azure OpenAI or other Azure AI services. And you can also have links to documentation that you can read if you need some info. Now, let's go further. So this is the overview page that also has the project details, which are not so important right now. Then model catalog. In here you can see all the models that you can deploy in your project. See, there's a lot of models. Now, for these models, you have also leaderboards that are made by Azure, and then you can see that certain models perform better in certain aspects than some other models. So in here you can see the leaderboards of these models, so you can select which model you want to use. And also there is a list of announcements for the new models. Now, there are other models possible. And if you click see all the models, you see all the models that are there, including Hugging Face models. But for some of these models, you need to ask for permission to be able to use them. Now, let's go further. So we're going to go to all the functions on the left, and we'll go briefly over each function, and then we'll go a little bit more deep into the actual model deployment and model usage to the API. So the playgrounds is the name suggests, so you can have a chat playground, so you can chat with models, you can explore videos, images, so all the different playgrounds which are actually not production ready solutions, but they're just playgrounds where you can test different aspects of Azure Foundry. Now, I will not go into the agents, because for agents, you need to deploy a model. And we did not yet deploy a model, so I will cancel it. So I will just skip agents for now and discuss them in the future. Then templates. Yeah, Azure is very good that it provides a lot of templates that you can just reuse, and they're all on GitHub. You can open all of these templates and then just start exploring. AI chat, AI agents, multi-agent workflow automation. There is just a simple set of templates in here, but there are additional code templates, and you can go to them on GitHub, and you can go to them by visiting this link. Then fine-tuning. Well, sometimes the models, the big models, are not something that gives you all the capabilities that you want. Sometimes, for example, your organization has data that it wants to include in the results of the model, and there are two general ways to do it. One is fine-tuning, and another is reg. And this is the place where you can fine-tune your models. Then content understanding. This is something new, and indeed it's in the preview. So every time you see the preview on the right, that means that this feature is still being explored. So it's not in general availability, it's still being explored. And indeed, my region doesn't even have the content understanding. And I actually did not try this feature before. So let's move further. Tracing is a capability that you can check your code. So the Azure has included, let's say, in a sense, you can see it as logging. So every time you send a request to your LLM, you can track what request was it, what was the response of the model, what were the functions that were called. You can see on the right, you can check exactly what your application or how your application was using the model. Then monitoring is very similar, but on a different level. So for tracing, you want to use tracing when you want to debug things, and you use monitor when you want to see how many requests were there, what is the monetary side of your usage of your model, etc., etc. Then evaluation. So you can evaluate your model to see how good it behaves. So, for example, if you fine tune your model, and then you say, okay, now I want to see if my model is, let's say, doesn't allow for some aggressive behavior, you can check it out. And in here, you can actually have the evaluator library. So the evaluator library is a library of predefined evaluators from Microsoft that you can just use. And you can say, okay, while content evaluator to evaluate if the content inside of the model or if the model returns on specific queries, if it returns the answers that are correct and or non-violent. There is a lot of predefined evaluators, but you can make your own also. Then guardrails. Usually the LLMs that you will be using do have their own guardrails, internal guardrails, but you can set up additional guardrails. So you can set up additional ways to make sure that the model doesn't process the data that it should not process, or that it makes sure that the data that the model returns is according to the rules of the country where you are in, like legal requirements. Then there are risk alerts. You can alert if the model goes over, let's say, if the model starts consuming too much resources, you can check it out here and make sure that you get alert. Then there's a governance. You can connect also to the Microsoft Purview. So the models that consume the data, then they can also be included into Microsoft Purview and make sure that they are according to, for example, AI regulations or similar things. Then we go to store competitions. So you can, for let's say, you can see this as some kind of unit testing. You can store competitions. So the set of prompts and the responses, and you can store them, and then you can store these competitions to evaluate or even fine tune models. Then you can have bad jobs. So, for example, if you have a very big input data and with millions of billions of input lines, and you want each of them to be, in a sense, converted or adopted through some model, you can do it here. Then there are vector stores, so you can set up a vector store, and vector store is something that you can use in RAG. There are different ways to do it, but you can also do it here in this part, and then you can use these vector stores later in your application to store the data, which will be then automatically chunked and processed, and then you can search the data to these vector stores. And then here there is a list of all the data files that you set up, for example, for the data stores, for the batch processing jobs, etc., etc. Now, we went through a lot of these things to the left, but we actually did not see yet how to actually set up a model and use a model. Well, that is unfortunately almost at the end. So I'll now click on models and endpoints. And in here, but just before we deploy a model, you can also see here that there is a service endpoint. So Azure Foundry also allows you or gives you access to the other Azure AI services like speech, vision, etc., etc. So you can check their endpoints here. But now we are going to deploy a model. So I click on the deploy model, and then we can deploy either base model or fine tune. We are now for this test, we're just going to deploy a base model. I'm going to deploy just a really very simple model that is just used for testing. In here, we can decide on deployment type. So this is a way to choose how you want to deploy your model. And then we say create. Now, well, this is now our deployment model, GPT 4.1 Nano. You can see in here, this is the endpoint. The endpoint is the same as the one that we saw in the beginning with the model in the initial landing page. Then in here, we have the key. So you can use this key to access this model through the API. And how can you access it? Well, on the right side in here, you have a very good description of how you can use your model. So this is this description can be given in different languages: Python, JavaScript, REST, Java, or C Sharp. And then you can use different SDKs. So there are different ways to access your models, and there is a different key authentication or enter ID authentication. So there is different authentication type. Now, if you say, okay, I want to use API key, which one is here on the left to authenticate, then this is a way to do it. So you import from OpenAI package, you import Azure OpenAI, and then you make a client. Yeah, with the API version. Now there is a new API version. The endpoint is the name of your Foundry resource plus the cognitive services azure.com, and then you have your subscription key. So this is a basic how you can set up your authentication. But before you do that, of course, you need to install OpenAI. And actually, this second example is a better example. So this one actually shows you everything you need to know to be able to run your LLM. So what does it do? Well, you set up endpoint, you set the model name, you set the deployment name, then the subscription key, which should not come here, but should probably come through some other way, through, for example, the environment variables. You say API version, then you make a client, and you say, okay, I want a response, and then from the client, I want to run the chat, and want to run the completion chat, the text completion, and then it create the response. These are the messages. The messages are the messages you can see as prompts. Now this is a user prompt. This is a system prompt. Yeah. So this is the LLM will use these messages to return the result. Then there are some specific things like the completion tokens, the temperature, and some other things for setting up the let's say the quality of the results or the determinicity of the result, and that's it. And then you just say, okay, give me whatever you got from the response. The first result, given the message, which will actually be similar to this, and given the content. So yeah, this is a basic sample, and now you have a little bit more samples. For example, it's a more complex sample with a system prompt, and then a user prompt, and then a system prompt, and then again a user prompt. So this is already like you can see the system and user are something that would be similar to these messages, but then these messages are also after the result of the first example where the assistant, which is the LLM, gave some response, but then the user gave another request. Now you can also stream the output. So you can go slowly update by update in the response. And these are the basic things. But now how does it really work? Well, very good with this Azure Foundry is that you can also open this in VS Code. So if you click on the while this opens, so there is this open in VS Code option. This actually opens the web VS Code, and then it allows you to run the more complex example in the web VS Code with everything set up. And then what you can do when you run this example, you can check how everything is set up, and then you can download your example to your local machine if you want to work with the example further. So let's wait a little bit until this environment is set up. Now this is a temporary environment. You can see that we have 4 hours to use this environment, but it will not need that many. Now the system is now installing the requirements. It also did set up the environment variables with the proper environment variable for authentication. And this is now, you can see, this is the same example that was the extended example that was there. Yeah. But the only difference is that now, the only difference, it goes the completion, so client chat completion create, and then puts the completion to JSON, so puts the results as a JSON. But you can see also in here that it takes the endpoint, it takes the deployment, it takes the subscription key from the environment itself, and then uses them to instantiate the client. So let's just run it. Okay, so this is the exam, the result. You can see that the result has a lot more content, but this is good. So in this way, you can see actually what is written in the result. It's not just the result of the LLM. It's not just the output of the LLM that is returned, but you can see, okay, now is this safe content? Are there some kind of protected material? So you can see also some kind of guardrails being included in these results. So in order to use this, you can just download this to your computer and run it on your computer. Well, now you will see that in this environment variable, there is no variable for endpoint URL, deployment name, and Azure OpenAI key, but these two are anyway the endpoint URL and deployment are, you can just use the default values, but for the Azure OpenAI key, you would have to put Azure OpenAI key in your environment variable and then paste here your key, and then you will be able to use LLM that you just deployed. So now we saw then how to deploy a model, we saw how to use a model. So you please play with this and enjoy your work with Azure AI Foundry.